Awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much for doing this.
Course, man.
I saw the film at the premiere in Toronto in the giant dome, which is
Yes.
it's an interesting way to watch a movie.
Hmm.
They you go to TIFF and you very much are used to like your trudging to your screening room type thing, and then they're like, oh, also sometimes you have to take a bus over here and sit in a giant testicle. And
Yeah, totally.
like the year before I was there, and no one was there obviously because it was COVIDy, but it was Dune. It was like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, cool. So when I
Hmm.
saw that you guys had that one, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And
Yeah.
it was a good fit because I think you guys really toe the line interestingly between a very obviously personal story and
Hmm.
like, hey, don't worry, I want to entertain you. Like I've got this big story I'm telling. Like I got this. It's very old fashioned in that way. It
Yeah.
does feel like in the best way, like it came out of almost the studio system. Like
Yeah.
how do we take your personal story and also make everyone's dad want to watch it, not just
Yeah.
fighter pilot dads.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I mean, it's
yeah,
it's that weird thing where, scope and scale can also be emotional,
totally. You would
and
hope.
you hope,
Yeah,
and Jesse and Tom's relationship, like reminded me of those like big Hollywood movie relationships that kind of made me want to make movies, and whether that's Matt Damon and Robin Williams and Good Will Hunting, or it's Andy Dufresne and Red and Shawshank, like
favorite film of all time.
there's like there's an epicness and almost like to almost like a Greek tragedy standpoint of how certain individuals like are related to another. And Devotion, even when I read the script for the first time, kind of had that feeling to me. So I think, yeah, to your point, being able to play it in large format, with the backdrop of the war and all of its theatricality is like part of what makes it fun.
Right. And if you do it right, which you guys do, it raises both, rising tide raises all ships. You become more invested in the story and in the friendship because it's set during the war. And you become
Mm-hmm.
more invested in survival of the characters because you're spending enough time with them to really care. The war movies I think that don't resonate as much go too hard in the you're here to see a bunch of people get killed. Like
Right.
the one guy you care about will be fine, but everyone else is fair game, which
Right.
is at a certain point you check out. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I got what I know what I'm in for. And I think here you're so invested in everyone. Obviously, you're
Mm-hmm.
spending the most time with your two protagonists, but I spent the whole time going like Tom Sadowski's character is like that's a good dude. Like you so rarely get that character as a good dude, so you're like, please don't let him die. Like he just seems like
Totally.
a rock solid guy, and everyone
Totally.
feels that way except the ones obviously that are meant to reflect a point of view we do not approve of.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, I think what Jonathan and Glenn did between the two of them obviously establishes such a specific emotional reality. Like it was really important to me that we made sure that like the squadron also felt that way, and I think we're all sort of familiar with those sort of the other guys in the group archetypes, but I think to make everyone feel, and I don't know, I'm especially sensitive to it with it being a true story.
Sure.
You want it all to feel real, not just in the sort of the practicality of the military side, but also who these men are to one another, and as important, like Jesse and his wife's relationship, feel really, and again, growing up in a Navy brat, like I know what that dynamic looks like, and wanting to honor the reality of, not just what it's like to be a soldier, but the equally as hard job of what it's like to be the soldier's partner, was just, yeah, like we had to line that up.
Right. And that's what I was just thinking. You have two very star powery type actors,
Mm-hmm.
like just oozing charisma, playing roles, like really invested in, and not that they don't do it, but there's a different movie where they get to show off more for the camera, and it's not the movie you're making. And on the flip side, yeah, you could literally just turn to your dad and be like, does that feel like bullshit, or does that
Yeah.
am I on to something? And you would hope you would get the accurate answer, but you do have that like I'll know if it passed the smell test because I have the family and I have
Yeah.
my family. I have
Yeah.
a pretty good barometer here for if this is working.
Yeah. I mean, it's like at every step of the way, I had, I had good balances for, for making sure we were being honest. You have the real family of Jesse and Tom there with us, in the process. I have my dad there, and I have actors who, can smell dishonesty from a mile away.
Sure.
So I think, when you have all of that together, the experience of actually making the movie it's really less about like finding it, and more about just, making sure that we're keeping the North Star of telling the truth, and that's been a very different experience for me on this film, given that, my last two films are genre pictures, and you can kind of, there's a, if it doesn't work, you can make it up.
Totally. And also the
But,
scale is a lot smaller, so it's like okay, a limitation can be a benefit in some way. We can get creative. Here it's well, we're at a we're certainly not as expensive as some of the things that we're shot your way next, which is
yeah.
its own issue. But we're also based in truth, so it's not even you know figuring out. It's like don't fuck this up in a way, which is probably a really interesting way of looking at it because you have your personal investment from your family, but you also want to honor the family, but you also want to entertain. You also want someone to leave the theater and not feel like they watched homework. They want to feel like, oh, I watched kind of an action movie in a way. I was as invested in the fighter scenes as I am in their trip over the can.
Yep. Well, I think it just it zeroes in on something that's important to me. I think just in the broadest sense of like what it is to make movies. But I think if the lights come up and you've been moved, you know, it's that to me is like the like that's the dream, and of course folks will always have opinions on, all the aspects of how the film is made, and the story that it's telling, and its pace and its focus and all of these things. But I think part of the experience of going to the movies is, yes, I mean, to hopefully be in awe, and there's spectacle, and there are all of these things. But you know if your stomach hurts from laughing, or your eyes are wet from crying, that just reminds me like why I make movies. And if there is like an aftertaste, and a sort of like a resonating feeling in your body as the lights come up, like that's the most fun part of the job.
Oh yeah, I've said it to a bunch of people. I said it to Jonathan on Tuesday, and he confirmed it. If somebody even doesn't like something, that's easier to take than they walk out and go, "What's for dinner?" They're completely
Mhm.
dismissing and ready, even if they like the movie, but they're just, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to think about it, because you can't engage with that. If they didn't like it because they thought it was boring, you can go, "Well, that's a completely valid take. You didn't want the movie I made, and I'm
Yeah.
confident I made the movie I wanted. You didn't get that, but you have a valid reaction to that. If you thought it was too much action, you wanted a drama. I understand that. It's when you just
Yeah.
go, all right, I spent 2 hours with that. Let's go get pizza. You're like, I can't engage with that because that means I didn't leave anything on you.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You're
But
like,
you hope for not that.
exactly. You're like, I can't fix that. That means I just, nothing happened. If you loved it, great. If you hated it, you might be right. Like, why did you hate? Like, you're more inclined to want to know why. If someone just goes like, we were talking about it, he said, we both agreed. The worst thing you can hear is that was interesting. You're like, oh, you didn't like it, but you won't even tell me you didn't like it. You just want to disengage from the conversation and move on.
Yeah,
Like,
as
oh,
fast as you can. Yeah,
that's that's the you have a great personality of making movies. Oh no,
1,000%.
exactly. And as you keep doing it, the offers change, and as the scale changes, as franchises come at you, you get more of that of like, oh, your treatment was interesting. You're like, oh, okay. The time I spent on that was not going anywhere. You know,
Yeah.
you want someone to to have a reaction, and wherever level of the thing. If you turn in a script and someone doesn't like it, okay, good. Why don't you like it? I can maybe fix this. If you just,
Yeah,
all right, I'll let you know. Don't call us, we'll call you. You're like, oh, okay, great.
totally.
That's what I think is so interesting about this movie is you really don't get any of that because it
Huh.
is, I think, serving both masters in a way that's no one really does anymore. You know,
Hmm.
as you get bigger, obviously studios have the dreams of let's make $1 billion, and that's not great for creativity. But this is equally a character study and a big epic, and you
Yeah.
pay equal attention to both.
Well, I mean, that was always, yeah. I mean, that was sort of the fundamental interest to me in getting to tell this story is just, um, I had always felt, even in just reading the script for the first time, and then subsequently reading the book and getting to know the families, that the architecture of the film actually has to follow the relationship, not the war,
Yeah,
and innately by doing that, and while still within reason telling the truth of what really happened, the momentum of where the story lives is almost dictated to you,
yeah,
and when you look at the film, I mean, like that is that is the structure that the movie lives in, is Tom and Jesse. Like that is act one, act two, act three.
yeah.
Um um because the war itself, it's like you know it was always and totally a backdrop to them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and it was going to happen whether they were there or not. So why would you
Exactly.
focus that far on that one?
And look, thousand other movies to be made in and around, spaces and worlds like that.
Yeah,
But again, the to me, the most kind of both epic and relatable aspect of Devotion was, sort of what transpired between the triangle of Jesse, Tom, and Daisy.
totally. And as we sort of wrap up, what I'm most fascinated by is, you had that real touching moment with your dad after the screening. I'm curious, when you guys finally met up, like, what did he have to say? He was obviously touched by it, but when you finally have that moment to like not have to do it in front of 300 people, is it, was that the moment when you knew you probably did a good job? Just when like dad was like, I was into it.
You know, in a weird way, that wasn't a definitive moment
Mm,
because he was involved so often so early,
yeah,
so it's like he read early drafts of the script, and then while I was doing my rewrites and revisions, I would ask him about moment X, Y, or Z, and what was it like when you told mom that you were going to cruise, and so it started there, and then he came to set with my mom for just about a month, so then watched a lot of that happen and watched scenes come together, and then I would run from monitor over to him to talk about a piece, and then that sort of stayed. The same thing happened in editorial. He came to our first tested screening, and that was the first time he saw the movie, and then from there, I actually had like something physical to ask him about, like, okay, what did you think about that scene? What do you think about this? And does that connect? Does that make sense? Would they actually? And again, the feedback was both, I think, emotional and technical at that point. So to finally bring it to Toronto and show the completed version, was certainly like exciting and overwhelming, and but at the same time, it wasn't new to him fully. I think then it was sort of suddenly it was like the context of like, wow, now everybody's watching it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, he actually did make this. Oh, this is a thing now. Oh,
Yeah.
why is everyone looking at me while I'm watching it?
Yeah. Why is everybody watching me cry?
Definitely
Uh,
what a Navy man wants to have happen to him.
oh yeah. I mean, but so to kind of answer your question, it was like it was breadcrumbed the whole time. So that's I mean, like at the end of the day, that's why Devotion will always just have, I mean, for so many reasons, but one of the many that just has made it such a special thing is, how much time I've spent with family in the process of making it, which, this job can at times be quite isolating, and just the nature of, how production works, certainly makes some aspects of that difficult. But I think to involve family in the process of this, has been really special.
Oh yeah, no, when you go off for 4 or 5 weeks to do the actual shooting, you're not usually able to be like, my folks are coming with me. We're going to shoot in Turkey, and they're just coming. They're going to swing by. Most of the time, it's like,
Totally.
one, not going to happen, and two, most parents also like, no, we don't want to do that. Like, you go make your fun little movie. We'll be here. You tell us
We'll
how
be
it
here.
goes.
Yeah, totally. We don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. to get in a 15 past. No, it's like that's really
Yeah,
that's really the case.
they're like, this is your thing. You're invested in this, and we're happy you're invested in this.
Yeah.
But we had our jobs. Like
We'll see you when you're back. Yeah,
exactly, and you'll be very tired, and you'll want to come and take a nap, and we're fine with that. But you go deal with the movie. We're not movie people. Yeah, no, there's
normally the case.
exactly. It was so heartening to see that moment, and it was the little added like special sauce of, oh, now you always know why a movie gets made, and there's all the good reasons, there's all the money reasons. It was just cool to see the like, okay, there's definitely something about like, I want to make my dad happy too, and who doesn't like that? How can you not get
Yeah,
behind?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, devotion is a family, is a family story, and that's the story of the Browns, the story of the Hudners, the Majorses and the Powells and the Dillards. I mean, and I think that feeling was in writing, in prep, in production, and sort of in this last stage, in finally getting to share the movie. But to your point, like that's not always the case. So that has made this one particularly special for that reason.
Well, you should be enjoying it. You should be very proud of the final product, and I'm
Thanks, man.
Oh yeah, thrilled we got to do this, and I'm looking forward to the next time. I know it's a weird like what the next project's going to be situation, because suddenly you get these bigger movies, and you may not necessarily want that, but also that's kind of where things move. It's almost harder to get a smaller movie made, so I'm gonna be fascinated to see what's next, because I'm sure there are things brewing in your head right now.
I mean, you know how it is. You spin 1,000 plates and rarely have full control over like what actually happens next.
Exactly. Like, I want to make any of these. Who's actually going to write a check? Like, the concept of the money is beyond.
That's how it works. So that said, I'm looking forward to shooting again. It's I'm excited to kind of get back to set, but who knows what that'll be.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, great to chat, man. Thanks so much.
Likewise.